Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our How to Survive and Thrive Real Estate Virtual Summit. I'm super excited to have now Ellie Perlman with us, who is a multifamily expert. And I'm happy to say, is also one of my partners in a deal that we've done together, and hopefully there'll be many more that we do together too. She has a super fascinating background, which I'll have her share more about. How she got into multifamily. It's an unlikely story from where she came from, but really goes to show like doesn't matter where you come from, you can create success. And also, I think right now at this time of people feeling like they're really struggling with finances and the economy, her story is going to be particularly inspiring. I think from where she's come from to what she's been able to create. And this whole summit is about like how do you like what are some asset classes that are poised to do well that are recession resistant, and multifamily, especially the way Ellie practices it, I think is one of those categories. I'm super excited to have her here. So welcome, Ellie.
Thank you, Monique. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for coming and making the time. Uh, so yeah, let's get started. Like share your story and tell people like why multifamily? Why are you in this asset class and how did you get here?
Sure. So, why multifamily? I think it's an asset class that is easy to understand, and I can really relate to it because most of us were tenants at some point. So it's easier for me to understand their needs, their pain points. And as a businesswoman, it's just easier for me to relate to it compared to, in an office, building or medical, building. So this is kind of that's one of the reasons why I went to multifamily. It's there's also proud of ownership when you buy and you own a building versus another type of commercial. It might be silly, but this is at least for me that's the same. And I'm not going to repeat the same answer that everyone says, which is also true, that everyone needs a place to live. We've heard it over and over again, and but I really think that there's going to be a demand. And while other asset classes are struggling, or there's kind of uh, fluctuation in demand, especially with retail, especially with office. With multifamily, it's going to be impacted at one point or another, but you're not going to have an entirely vacant building, apartment building like you see with retails and office spaces. So in that regard, it makes me feel, more secure spending, time and energy and money in purchasing those
Yeah.
properties. So that's kind of the answer to your first question about why multifamily.
And share your story because I think your story is super inspiring. And I want you just briefly let people know it's like where'd you come from and how'd you get here? Because now you have over 2,000 multifamily doors and quite a large portfolio. So how did you get here?
Okay, I'm going to give you the short version because I know there are a lot of, some questions we need to get to, and I want to make sure that I also provide value to
Yeah.
the attendees. So really quick, I was born and raised in Israel, and I was, my family was pretty poor, and I used to clean synagogues, for a living when I was 11 years old, just to help my parents make some money and get by. And I realized at some point that I understood where I was, in the chain of command, in society, and I understood that I needed to do well to get out of this situation. I was determined. I think I realized that when I was 12 or 13 years old, I was determined to build a different life for myself. But from a 13 years old, girl's perspective, it's kind of a long way. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. And for me, education was the way, because I was a nerd. I used to get straight A's, and that's what I knew how to do. So I worked hard, and I got to, after graduation from high school, I got to law school, because for me, the way to get out of poverty was actually to become a lawyer. Real estate was always interesting to me because I saw people buying real estate around me, and they were pretty, wealthy, but I thought that I needed a lot of money to buy real estate, and I didn't have money. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start working as a lawyer. I'm going to, work my way, up and create my wealth this way. And that was kind of my first step out of the cycle of poverty, out of that place. um I also made the very smart decision of getting married when I was 19 years old, and I'm married today, but to a different guy. But that was just another layer of complication while I was trying to figure things out, going to college, and I had two jobs because I was paying the bills and I was paying, for my tuition. My ex-husband was not working, and that was very, very challenging. So, fast forward after about 4 or 5 years in the industry, going to school and then going to law school, I was working on huge real estate deals, and I was really happy at some point. And then I realized, you know what, I'm actually not on the right side of the table, because I want to be where my customers, when my clients were. I want to be the one who's buying the buildings and not representing them, in front of banks and other partners. So I transitioned to real estate, to property management right after, and worked as a property manager for about 4 years, and then moved to the States. And I went to business school, wanted to learn more about the business aspect, and of marketing and finances and strategy and everything that I just didn't know. Again, I was kind of falling back to the education part, which is kind of, that was I guess my comfort zone.
Yeah. So then you went to, I think you went to MIT for business school, then you came out and you started to invest in real estate. Um, okay. So, and then you landed on multifamily for the reasons you talked about before. Um, what what do you think is great about multifamily as an asset class? What do you like about it?
Well, I like the fact that it's, as I mentioned before, it's easy for me to understand it, and relate to to the tenants, to my tenants, understand them, understand what makes them tick, what their pain points are, and how I can actually, I think there's a lot of creativity in real estate. The part that I love the most is walking the property and trying to see opportunities where other people don't see. So if I walk a property and I say, you know what, why don't we just create an Amazon locker, in a facility, and people might pay for it. So maybe we can charge $15 a month, and it would cost us $7 a month, and we can make some profit. Or trying to think, I'm looking at the clubhouse, and it's pretty big. We can allocate a small portion of it, put some chairs and tables and a printer and coffee machine, and we have a WeWork area. So we can maybe charge non-residents that want to come and for a fraction of the price of what they would pay anywhere else, and kind of drive the income from multiple, there's so many from multiple sources. There's so many interesting and exciting um, streams of revenue from one property. I think that's the thing that makes me that's the thing that I love the most about multifamily.
I love that, and that's so creative. You're, it's the first time I've heard of somebody actually putting in an office space. It's actually for non-residents too. So like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good idea. We've done it
Yeah.
for residents, but like putting in for non-residents, that's very cool. Okay, so let's talk about what are the challenges? What are like potential downsides to multifamily just in general, and then in particular right now?
Yeah, I would say in general, it's interesting, when you buy a property, sometimes you find, you find that there are some surprises that are waiting for you. So for instance, some landlords, they're bringing tenants that shouldn't be there because they don't qualify, income wise. So we usually have, tenants, and that's kind of the standard 3 times income. And sometimes, they bring tenants that are not qualified just to keep the property full. And then you inherit a property that you need to deal with, tenants that cannot pay. So that's one of the main challenges, because you can't interview all of them before you actually, you purchase the property, and you do your due diligence. And sometimes you find some things, and sometimes things are being hidden from you. And just to navigate through everything and find creative solutions and make the decision whether, where you want to pick your battles. Are you going to fight with the landlord and put your energy there? Or are you going to clean up the property and bring better tenants? Or what exactly to do? I think this is one of the main challenges, just to understand what's going to be the state of the property right after you purchase it. So make sure you have a very thorough due diligence process in place, that you have a capable partner that knows how to do the due diligence thoroughly, and they don't have, another job that they're doing, so that can take away their attention from what's important. And on top of it, make sure you work with a really, really good property management company, because they can make or break your deal. A good company can help you get out of almost any situation.
Yeah, and a bad company can put you into the hole.
Yeah, exactly.
I've experienced both. And so, what you said was so important in terms of the due diligence. So there's the due diligence on the actual property, and making sure that, like, you've checked every unit, and you're what you're buying, what you think you're buying. Even though you can't see behind the walls, there's a lot you can see by checking it. But then there's also the financial due diligence, like, who are you? Are the numbers as rosy as they look? And who are the tenants? So that's so good. And so right now, like, this whole summit is about, like, how do we set ourselves up so that at the other side of this economic storm that we're finding ourselves in, we're going to be better off than ever. I, personally think that multifamily, especially B-class multifamily, is it is this housing that people will always need. There's always going to be if they're going to be losing their homes, they're going to go into this type of housing, or if they're going to move from A class to B class. And so it tends to be pretty recession resistant. Not everything is, nothing's recession proof, but if you're in a strong market, then it's recession resistant. Well, what are the challenges that you're finding right now? Because we are in this, unprecedented time. And what are some of the creative ways in which you are dealing with that, or trying to, or just what are some of the ways that you were dealing with that, trying to protect yourself and the investors from from what's happening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing that we're doing right now is focus on first and foremost on safety. So educating, our tenants, making sure they understand what are the CDC's, regulations. And we also have an emergency team that basically, if someone is being tested positive or think they might, contracted the virus, then we know where to send them. We know what to do, so that the leasing officer knows who to call, and the people that they call, they were trained, so they know exactly where to send someone who is sick, or someone who is, who might think, who think that they might get sick. We're closing all the shared, all the amenities we're closing, so people cannot
communal
congregate.
Spaces. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what we're doing on the safety side, and of course wiping all the knobs and everything that we can, the doors and desks and stuff. Then when it comes to the rent collection, that's where that's the point that is basically kind of the heart of what we're focused on. We have shifted our focus from marketing to new tenants to renewals because most likely, we want to make sure that people that are still in the apartment are going to renew their contract and they're not going to go somewhere else because it's going to be really hard to bring someone new now when people are not leaving, to see property tours. We have virtual tours, but it's not the same, and we've definitely seen a decline in traffic. And so we stopped right now all the renovation projects that we have. It doesn't make sense to keep renovating. Well, it's also a problem to bring, the vendors.
Contractors and
Exactly.
yeah.
But you want to make sure that right now you have enough cash flow that can help you, weather this storm. So we're emphasis on renovations. We're probably not going to see the rent premiums that we thought we would get. And if this is going to be resolved in a couple of months, then we're going to be just fine. But nobody really knows, right? So
Yeah.
we're working with on creating a protocol where if someone comes to us April 1st and says, I lost my job, then what do we do? So we have a questionnaire that we created, and they need to provide a proof that they actually lost their job, so they can be eligible for a rent, a kind of a payment plan. So some of it they'll pay today, some of it they'll pay every month. So that will be stacked on top of the rent. And I think that's the best we can do. It's also educating tenants that not everyone is basically safe from eviction, because people are going to take advantage of it. I mean, personally, I feel bad evicting people that lost their jobs, but as long as they can provide a proof, and that's very easy if you did lose your job, then we're not going to evict them. But we have to understand that we have to get a proof, so we're not going to be taken advantage of by people who just don't want to pay. So you have to find that fine line. That's part of also what we implement and what we do. We, for instance, offered a small discount if they're going to pay now before April 1st. So we gave people a $50 discount, and we already have some takers if they pay by Friday instead of waiting for April 1st, because we're anticipating more layoffs and people are taking advantage of it. So we know, okay, at least for some of them, they already paid. And we're offering $100 off if they're going to pay by the end of the month for April and for May.
Okay.
So we're making sure that we're getting more cash flow, and people are paying in advance. Those who have some reserves, and we're willing to take a little bit of a haircut on the rents, than to wait and see, because some of them are going to be laid off on April. But if they have the money now, that can help, help them to pay less, and it's going to help us, move forward and have some cash. And this is one of the ideas we actually just thought of today. Something that the property management company offered, and they said it's working well with other properties.
Yeah, I mean, it requires some creativity working with people, because unfortunately in this workforce housing, and a lot of the workforce are losing jobs right now. So how can you, but it's, we're imagining it'll be temporary, right? Eventually the this
I
will be on
hope
the other
so.
side of this virus, and the economy at some point needs to get restarted. It's not, we can't just sit in our homes forever. So at some point we'll start again. And how do you can you maintain while we're in this period? And then I think, though, generally though, once we're back at work, we still might be in a recession. It's likely. But we're back at work. Why do you think that this type of housing is still poised to do well, even if we're in a recession?
Yeah, even if we were in a recession, I always like to look at, and at the different classes in multifamily, and I definitely share. I totally agree with your opinion about Class B. I think that in a recession, some people that currently rent from a Class A property, they're going they're going to lose their job or need to downside or downgrade to a class B. I think class C is going to get hit the hardest in this environment, because there's a lot of workforce housing. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs or have their hours, reduced. And I think class B, it's really, it's kind of a mix of workforce housing and also, white collar, blue collar. I think white collar are going to do a little bit better. A lot of us are
Yeah.
working from home. So this is something that the average, C class tenant cannot do if they're working in, cleaning at the supermarket. Yeah.
Retail, fast food. Yeah.
Exactly. Restaurants that they don't have that luxury because you don't have clients. So a lot of people are, those who can work from home, it means that they can make money for the company, and means the company can keep paying them. It's just that cycle. And that's why I think that class B, and I think historically it also did better than other asset classes in 2008. I think actually class C did a little bit better for some reason, but B is still solid. I feel comfortable with class B. Usually there's not a lot of deferred maintenance also, so you can also keep your costs, pretty low. So I
Yeah.
think, that's how I see it. But it's still, we're recording it, it's it's still not, I think we probably haven't seen the peak yet. So we probably
No.
have one or two more, tough months. So all of these are just projections and analysis, but I'm gonna, listen to it again in June and see if that was, if what I said was smart or if I was way off track. We just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's no crystal ball, and nobody has ever seen
Yeah.
anything like this right now. But there's still cycles, and generally speaking, this type of housing in up times and down times has done
Mm-hmm.
well. So it feels poised to do well again. But what are the opportunities you're seeing? Do you think that the prices will be going down for multifamily in the coming months?
Yeah. So I would say yes, but there's a huge but there. I already see some deals, a lot more off market deals. I see. I also see a lot of sellers that are pausing their the sale right now because of the uncertainty. I definitely see some price cuts and some more flexibility from the sellers. It was a seller's market for so long, and overnight it just changed.
Yeah.
I think, but the big but is, how do you know if what you're paying is the right price? Even if the price is reduced, if you don't know how the collections, meaning, how the bad debt and the vacancies are going to look like on April and May. So you can agree to pay, let's say $100,000 per door, and 30 days from now, you're going to see an increase in bad debt by 25%. Now, the property is not worth as much because the NOI changed significantly. And you always take that risk, but usually NOI does not change that significantly from the day you sign on the agreement until you close, which usually takes 60 to 90 days. And here it might change significantly, and because it's just, that's a big but, because yeah, you can find it at a discount, but how do you know if that discount is going to compensate you for the decline in bad debt and the increase in vacancy? Even though I think you're not going to see much change there, I think most people are going to stay put. They're just not going to pay rent. I think the bad debt is going to increase significantly, not so much the vacancies. But if you don't know by how much, then you don't know if the discount is enough to compensate for the reduction in, the change in the NOI. That's what
Yeah.
makes it a little bit challenging.
So my tendency would be to not buy right now, like my and that will hold off a few months. But what do you think? Again, no crystal ball, but in, I'd say, 6 months, do you feel like prices might have come down, or what? Your fortune telling. What would you guess might be the case in 6 months?
I think prices are still gonna stay down, because we're gonna see. I think it's a black swan. You're gonna see it's a big dip, and you're gonna see a quick rebound, but it's not gonna be 1-to-1. It's not that we're gonna be back to 100%, because a few factors. I think some businesses are not going to last. So they're going to, a lot of people are going to go out of business. And that means that tenants that used to work for those small businesses will still be looking for a job. I think some people, especially the older population, 50, 60 and above, are still going to maintain. I don't think they're going to be back to normal going to coffee shops and restaurants. And they're going to still, I think some of them at least, are going to try to avoid those crowded places until they make sure that it's behind us. And we have next winter. It's enough that one article said it in, yeah, it's enough that one or two articles, wrote that we might see the virus coming back next winter. So people are not going to change their behavior that quickly. I think maybe we're going to be 80% there, but not 100%, because it affected people. It affected, and the longer we stay here, the harder it is to go back there. I can tell you that if tomorrow everything is good, all the numbers are going to be down to zero. And when I say numbers, I mean number of new infections, number of deaths. I'm not going to be ready to go out there and go to the coffee shop and sit there and, like I did before. It's going to take me a long time, but this is me, but I'm sure there's a lot of people like me. It's going to take me a long time to go back to normal after I make sure that, okay, I'm out of the danger zone. So and that's why I think prices are still going to be down. It's going to be interesting to underwrite deals, because even if we're going to be back to 100% by June or July, which I don't think will happen, but if, then the low numbers that were abnormal during, February, March, April, May, or probably April and May, you're going to see, so the question is, how do you
underwrite that? How do you factor in that dip?
Exactly.
Because there will be there probably, like I agree, we're not going to hop right back to where we were. It's gonna go down. So then but there is opportunity in that challenge too. So where do you see the opportunity?
I think that there's still good deals out there. I think actually now it's a better environment, to buy, maybe not in the next 30 days or in the next, 2 weeks. But there's a better opportunity than it was, a year or 2 years ago, when everything was so hot. There was such fierce, competition. I think the opportunities are definitely going to be with a lot of off-market deals, because sellers would want to sell it fast and not take it through the entire, marketed cycle that takes about 6 months. You're going to see more, like you mentioned, prices are going to go down, and there's definitely going to be an opportunity there. And, as long as you have good relationships with the broker, they'll know to find you. If they think you're a closer and you've proven yourself in the past, they'll know how to find you. If someone thinks, I'm going to wait for the next recession, and now we are in a recession, so they want to start buying, that's not how it works, because the lenders don't know you. They're not going to take a risk with a new player, and the brokers don't know you. You can just start, build your credibility now from nothing. So those who have been around for a while and have proven themselves can actually, I think, do very well even in a recession. They just, need to make sure they have enough buffer, for reserves, and that they're buying at the right price. But definitely going to be opportunities. This is just, this is how just the economy works on every cycle. After 2008, we saw a lot of opportunities, and the big winners were those who actually bought a year, 2 years, 6 months after the recession was over, while others were still
2010.
Exactly. While others were still scared, so they didn't maybe buy in 2008 unless they bought it, cash. But this is basically, you have to be courageous, but you have to be smart and still be conservative. And if you find the right balance of all three, you will find a great deal even in today's environment.
Yeah. And I believe that there were certain people that were a little too optimistic in the past year or two in terms of their underwriting and, maybe the cash reserves. And so there'll be people who might find themselves not being able to sustain whatever's happening. And so I believe the opportunities will show up. So one of the things that you just said, which is really important in terms of like, you said like you have to be smart, courageous, and conservative. And that kind of brings me to this point about the psychology. This summit is about the psychology and the strategy. I believe, your psychology is so much more important actually than the strategy for success. So what are you doing to keep your psychology in the right place? What are you doing to stay courageous and not get into the fear and anxiety and overwhelm that is taking a lot of other people out?
So I like to read, and it actually helps me stay focused. I like to read a lot of self-help books that can basically, I'm reading books about stamina and grit, and it has those books have so many examples of people who weathered different storms and went through ups and downs, and I find a lot of comfort in that, because if someone went through it, we can do it too. It puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one thing that I'm doing, and I find it very helpful, and I take notes from every book that I read, and I go back and revisit the notes, and from every book I made a point, I take at least one point that I'm implementing starting tomorrow. And because otherwise you just read and you feel good about it and then you never implement it. So, what's
So
the
you're
point?
like, I'm going to implement this right away. That's
Yes,
great.
exactly. Um, my husband has been trying to get me into meditation for the longest time. I don't know. I can't do meditation. My mind just runs in so many directions. I have, it's kind of a list of all the things I need to do. But I try to really find time and put things in perspective. So I'm actually trying to, it's the smallest things, try to speak to my family more often, and that puts
Mm-hmm.
things in perspective, and also work out, spend time with my husband. Because if you're going to be, surrounding yourself only with work and devoting yourself to it completely, that there's no room for anything else. I've done it before, and I was really miserable because you don't have any outlet. So it's not even about not being a workaholic. You have to have, it's like a battery. Your phone, if you're going to talk, on your phone all day, the battery is going to die, and that's it. You need to charge it. So find how you can charge your batteries, and that's going to impact your business. It's going to impact your relationships, and that's what I do. It's not easy. Still work in progress. Still a workaholic, but I'm getting better.
What are you reading? So what's what are you reading right now? What's your favorite book that you think would be most valuable to people watching?
So the book that would be the most valuable, I can think of two books. One is The One Thing by Gary Keller, which
That
teaches
book.
you. It's an amazing book, right?
I
It
love it.
really
I love it.
teaches you.
Changed my life.
Yes, exactly. So something like this. I also like Influence. I forget the name of the author.
Oh, I did, I read that. I'm blanking, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's another one that I found very inspiring. I like the book Think and Grow Rich, even though it was very dense, and but it keeps me kind of motivated
Yeah.
when I need it. And right now I'm reading a book called Grit, which is basically it's
Angela
describing.
Duckworth. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Why some people have it and some people don't, and what you can do to improve on that, and on that part of your life. So yeah, I just love reading those books, and it brings me so many aha moments that I saw a huge change in my business when I've implemented, 1 to 3 points from every book. That's all that it takes.
Yeah. Little nuggets can
Yeah.
make such a big difference. So
Yes.
good. All right. And okay, so we're getting close to our time. A couple more questions, but one thing is, so somebody's interested in multifamily, what would you recommend for them to start?
I would say again education, because this is the thing that worked for me.
Yeah,
I
me too.
think education is key. Find a few good sources and stick to them, and just read and educate yourself. Podcasts, articles. So you can have, by the way, if you go to my website, ellieperlman.com/resources, you can find free resources, free templates. I also post my blog over there so you can see it. And I'm running a mentoring program called Ready to Scale. So and all information is on my website. That's another way of
And
getting.
we'll put a link to here so that we have it.
Awesome. So that's another way of getting into multifamily. There's not only one way to do it. It really depends on your personality, how ready you are. But I think educating yourself, whether you're partnering with someone with more experience or you're reading a lot and you're teaching yourself everything you need to know, or you're hiring a mentor that can show you the way, that can help you scale quickly, that can basically give you all the spreadsheets and the PDFs and all the templates that you need to, you don't need to figure it out on your own. That's another way of doing it. So I'm not saying that's the only way. This is how I got into it as well. So I'm just replicating, what works for me. And I think that's just educating. Just choose a path for you and educate yourself and keep going, and don't be scared. This is, if you're going to be in real estate, this is going to happen. Maybe not the spirals, but the ups and downs are going to happen, and you have to feel comfortable with it. You have to know when a deal is a good deal. And even, a few years ago or a month ago, the economy was still going strong. People were buying deals that didn't make sense, and it feels good. People were not afraid because the economy is doing well. That scared me in a way, because I knew it was not sustainable. I didn't know the virus was going to come, but I didn't, a 10, 11 year of, continuous growth that has to stop somewhere. And if you keep thinking that this is normal and it's going to keep going for 5 years, and that's how you underwrite your deals, well, that's scarier to me than buying a deal now. If you already assume, that things are not going to be good even for the next 2 years, just to be conservative and see how the numbers work. Then it's all about educating yourself and knowing what to look for, and just not being afraid. It's part of the game, and you need to learn how to enjoy the game.
Yeah. And it's good. Like what you're talking about, it's just math, really.
Yeah.
And so understanding like what the numbers are, what makes sense, and it's kind of, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst, and
Exactly.
And underwriting that way. So knowing that, I mean, I don't know if anybody could have underwrote quite this what is happening like right now, but like that's even, I think even the most conservative underwriter probably didn't expect something of this magnitude. But you have your the cash reserve so that you can survive this, and you're you're willing, able to work through it, and you're in the right market with the right tenant, so that like even when something this insane happens, that you're still okay. So if when you're educated and you know what to do, what to look for, what to prepare for, then this is a really great asset class, and I think it's still a really good bet, even in this economy, with the right underwriting, with the right numbers.
Could not agree more. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're like you're saying, like we're home, but it's still really busy.
Yeah, it's the same. It's even busier than usual. So yeah, thank you so much, Monique, for having me. I really appreciate it. Really. And I think, your the webinars, the summit is great, and I'm happy to be part of it.
I'm happy to have had you. Thank you.